I really wish that I didn't have to make this video, not just because I know that I look like a demented banshee. It is for a good reason. It is on purpose. I will explain. However, first things first. This morning, I woke to what probably many of us, including myself, have long been subconsciously expecting. An open declaration of war upon freedom, issued by the Christo-fascist cult that has now completely taken over the grand old party, the party of Lincoln, the former Republican Party, is no more. Now it is the Christo-fascist MAGA cult under Donald Trump. Kevin Roberts is the president of the Heritage Foundation, which is the right-wing think tank that came up with Project 2025. And if you haven't looked that up yet, you really need to, especially if you're an American citizen. Project 2025 is the GOP's plan to overthrow the Constitution upon which our democratic republic was founded. If you've been awake at all, you probably already know that the Supreme Court granted Donald Trump's absurd immunity request. Presidents are kings now, effectively. They want to tell you, oh, it's not that bad. It's only for official acts. And who gets to decide what's official? The Supreme Court. Of course. So, I posted that video in which Kevin Roberts makes his declaration of war on my page, so you can see the post. You can check it out yourself. All you need to watch is the first minute. He comes right out with it. You can see for yourself, and I recommend that. You should see it for yourself. Watch him openly declare war upon all U.S. citizens who are not aligned with the MAGA movement. This is not a drill. I haven't watched that video beyond Kevin Roberts to the main feature, which is always the bloviating orange blimp yet again spewing some toxic poison from every orifice he possesses. And my gods, I have rarely, if ever, in any lifetime, been utterly sickened to the extent that I am by Donald Jackhole Trump. So yeah, anytime I don't have to watch him, it's a good time. I'm going to quote Kevin Roberts, not word for word. I'm a little bit paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact word for word, but look at it yourself. I quote, "We are now in the second American Revolution, and it will remain bloodless if the left allows it to. If the left allows it to be bloodless, then it will be." Talk about victim blaming. You're announcing open war? Stealing all of our rights and freedoms? But it's us that are supposed to keep the peace? Let that sink in. Really sink in. Let it wake you all the fuck the way up. In calling that a declaration of war and a threat, a direct threat to our well-being and our lives, unfortunately, I am not exaggerating. I wish I was. They are now so confident, they're no longer even bothering to hide their goal. They're announcing it on national television. If you ever valued freedom at all, now is when you prove it. Now is when the country needs you. We must fight, all of us, in every way we can, no matter how small. This is one of my small ways. Yeah, my reach is 20 people. Okay, but that's what I've got. So that's what you use. You use the platform you have. That's all you're responsible for. We can't afford to hold back. I am, frankly, terrified, more so than I was. I am devastated. I'm also sickened. But beyond all of that, thankfully, I am furious. The fury inside me is finally awake, and she is hungry. Do not let the white patriarchy tell you that anger is a sin or a crime. Except when they feel it, of course. Anger is our most potent weapon against injustice. And like every potent weapon, it must be used responsibly, sparingly, only in great need, and strategically. Before I go on, I should make the disclaimer that not all white men have bad intentions or are bad people. Not at all. In fact, some of my favorite human beings fit most of those categories, into which most of our enemies also belong. White, male, Christian, aging. One or two white, male, aging people are my favorite human beings, and I wish that they had been my dad. More than that, there are lovely, righteous souls who fit some or even all of those categories. And it is never right to paint an entire demographic with one broad brush. Human beings are individuals, and they have to be taken case by case. There are assholes and angels in every group of people. Remember that Jesus said, don't judge, but he also said, judge with righteous judgment, and they love to leave that part out, especially for women and people of color. So not even old white Christians should be prematurely judged. But that said, back to rage. My fury is not remotely ladylike. All women's rage is far more powerful than we were ever allowed to realize. That is why they, the patriarchy, suppress us from birth. They hush us when we raise our voices too loud, even if we're laughing. They rebuke us when a boy hits us or pulls our hair and we protest. How many times were you told, if you're a woman, how many times were you told, boys will be boys? And, oh, it just means he likes you. As if that's acceptable. They punish us for stepping 1 foot outside the constrictive box in which they allow us to exist for their convenience. Women's rage is one thing the Christo-fascists have never been able to tolerate. It frightens them, and it should. The one good thing about all the centuries of our suppression is that we have gotten extremely good at smiling our soft smiles, hiding the sharp teeth, the fangs of the wild creature we really still are, deep inside. We grow up as girls being forced to suppress our rage beneath demure little Mona Lisa smiles. At least my generation was. The one advantage, again, to those false smiles that we learned so well, that we've had to constantly wear in their warped, twisted reality, how many times has a stranger, usually a white man, stopped you on the street and said, "Smile. You should smile." Out of nowhere, as if they have a right to tell us how to feel and how to arrange our faces. No. No, I will not smile unless it's to bare my teeth. Those who just clearly declared themselves our open enemies have forgotten the claws of the lioness that we keep sheathed in polite company as women. We're very good at that because we've had to be. They have forgotten how these soft smiles just give us a head start in baring our fangs to bite hard. They haven't included that in their calculations because, like they always do, the patriarchy got overconfident again. Fortunately for us. There is also great rage that has long been suppressed throughout communities of color. And I, as a white woman, would not dare to presume to speak for them in any way. I realize that I am in a position of privilege because at least I have been able to camouflage myself in the midst of the Christo-fascist white mob when I have to. I can blend in if I must. Not everyone has that luxury, and I don't know what that's like. Not gonna pretend to. But I did marry a Japanese man. Been married for 10 years, almost 11 now. My best friend of a decade is a black woman, and I know from observing them and loving them that there are untold depths of strength and patience and rage that I never learned deep within so many people of color. So, although I as a white woman am not going to presume to speak for people of color, I will say it's a matter of historical record that this nation, although I have always respected and loved its ideals, this nation was never lived up to its ideals of freedom and justice for all. Never. It was built on the backs of African slaves who were brought here against their will. It was cemented with the blood of indigenous tribes. It's never even been apologized for. Because white people like to say, well, I didn't do it. It's not my fault. My ancestors were assholes, but that's not my fault. Yeah. But who benefits from their assholery? You do. I do. Own it. The thieves of our freedom can't imagine the depth and the strength of rage we all have within us. because they have held near exclusive power for so long. They don't comprehend that the majority of humanity, including American humans, are not and never have been white Christian men. They're not. They're a minority. They have no idea that the only reason we have been patient was that we believed progress was being made. Did I just say progress like the guy from the Princess Bride? I did. Progress. Anyway, I'm not even gonna do this over again. Just whatever. Marriage is what brings us together today. Anyway, back to rage. I lost my place. So yeah, they're in the minority. They have no idea. We were being patient because we thought progress was being made and things were getting better, slower than we liked. And it was a hell of a lot more difficult than it ever should have been. But we thought, okay, at least we're getting there, right? Wrong. That's all over now. The patriarchy has just demanded through Kevin Roberts that we all kneel to them, that we submit to the theft of our precious rights and freedoms, or else there will be bloodshed. Sure, like a coward, Mr. Roberts stepped around that a little bit and said it would be a bloodless war if we meet their conditions of absolute unconditional surrender. They want us on our knees, giving up all that's left of our rights and freedoms. They love that verb, submission. As long as it's not applied to them. Everybody else, but not them. Do you plan to submit? Because I certainly do not. I will never submit to any white Christian male again who dares make outrageous demands of me. Not ever. Ancient Celtic war tribe, regular tribes used war paint when it was time to go to war, when they had to. They painted their faces and bodies. They wore charms and amulets. Okay, you can't see it. This is for Morrigan, Celtic goddess of death, war, fertility, prophecy. She's my main patroness. Her colors are black and red. Hence, my color choices today. The crow is the Morrigan's totem animal. And I did have a crow feather in my hair. Since I have 5 cats, I can't wear it, or they will bat at it because they think it's a toy, and it hurts when they bat my face trying to get the feather. Anyway, good to have a little bit of a lightening of the atmosphere. Anyway, I don't mind not being dignified. I'm too old to worry about my dignity. Sorry that I keep stopping and keep losing my place. So yeah, the Celtic tribes painting their faces, the crow feather, and you can't see it, but the phases of the moon are on my skirt. Another one of my patroness goddesses is Arian Rod, the goddess of the moon. These are a few examples of how everything I wear when I need strengthening or encouragement from within, it helps me to put it on the outside in whatever ways I can. And those are just some examples of how I do it, because it's a source of strength. It's not going to be the same for you. Maybe yours will not be outwardly visible at all, but you have them. You have your reservoirs of strength that will whisper in your ear, take heart, keep going, don't give up. Find those keys and use them. Unlock your own rage and your own power. Now is the time. Later is going to be too late. They have already stopped hiding like the cowards they are. They're now out in the open because they think they're safe with their hostile intent. They think it's too late. Maybe it is. We need to believe that they are deadly serious. They have already been stripping away voters' rights from communities of color, especially since the 2020 election. Reproductive rights from women, of course. And labor rights for workers, of course. We have already slept too long through too many of the first alarms. My favorite historical heroine is Boudica, queen of the Iceni, Celtic tribe. And forgive my pronunciation. If anybody knows the correct pronunciation, I know I'm butchering it. I'm so sorry. I'm doing the best I can. Anyway, Queen Boudica, born in about 25 AD. She died 60 or 61 AD. So the time of the Roman occupation of Britain. Boudica's husband, Prasutagus, was king of an independent client state of Rome until his death, when in Celtic culture, his wife inherited his authority because Celtic tribes were not patriarchal. Wives could inherit, so could daughters. She inherited his authority. The daughters inherited from him as well. She didn't have any sons. They didn't have any sons. From what I recall. Hopefully I'm recalling correctly. Roman culture, of course, was patriarchal like ours. And of course, ours is partly built on Rome, modeled after their legal system and their system of government. They refused to recognize Boudica as queen. Instead, they annexed her territory as if it had already been conquered. Sound familiar yet? The Romans claimed that Prasutagus owed them debts, and to collect on them, the Romans confiscated lands and property from the Iceni tribe and enslaved their nobles. Boudica protested. Who wouldn't? The Romans then responded with the arrogant brutality common to patriarchy. As a result, we can guess what they did, and we'd probably be right. The Romans had Boudica publicly whipped in front of her people to undermine her authority, to humiliate her. The Romans also publicly raped her 2 daughters. That is unforgivable. It's recorded in the writings of Tacitus, if anybody's curious. But Boudica waited after that happened. She did not rush to right that injustice. She didn't fly off in a reckless rage. She nurtured her wrath until the right time. She used it strategically. She waited until the Romans were distracted. There was just 1 legion left. Rest of them were up north, I believe, in Norfolk or somewhere in England, fighting other battles. That is when Boudica struck. She led her own tribe, as well as other tribes, which united with her tribe into war against the Roman Empire. And think of that. Imagine being her, having the absolute balls to go up against the might of the Roman Empire as a little Celtic tribe on an island. Amazing courage. That's the courage we need now. Those Celtic tribes utterly destroyed Camulodunum, modern Colchester, Verulamium, St. Albans, and Londinium, London. They burned those Roman cities to the ground. They left nothing standing, and they massacred everything they could get their hands on. Their revenge was complete, and it was sweet. My computer is provoking my temper. It's not a good time to do that, computer, okay? Not a good day. Technology hates me. The Romans never expected retaliation. Of course they wouldn't expect it. They never do. They, in their arrogance, think that they are inviolate, invincible. They expected Boudica to submit to Roman rule, to forget being queen, and be a vassal, be a slave. Just like all of Europe and the Middle East and parts of Asia already had. The Romans were unbeatable, so they believed. And so everybody else believed as well, from harsh experience. Again, sound familiar? But Boudica changed all that. She showed them their weakness. She brought justice down upon them like a hammer for their evil and their arrogance. She reminded them what fear tastes like. That tang of metal, of copper in the back of your throat when you are terrified for your life. We need to remind them what that tastes like, because we know it all too well, thanks to them. Admittedly, Boudica's story doesn't end well, because Rome far outnumbered the tribes, and the tribes were not really unified enough. That's not the case today, necessarily. Let me finish. Boudica did end up dying, but she did it on her own terms. The Romans were going to enslave her, and when she knew they were on their way and there was no way out, she killed herself. And frankly, I respect her all the more for that. Die as a queen rather than live as a slave. Today, in our case, things are a lot softer. Our enemies, for one thing, they're a lot softer. They're lazy, they're flabby, they're old, a lot of them. They're weak. If we unify our tribes, women, people of color, disenfranchised communities, everyone who's ever been stepped on by the white Christo-fascist patriarchy, if we all unite, we outnumber them. And we are better connected, potentially, than the ancient tribes ever could have been. We can communicate across the entire globe in fractions of a second. When we act together for all of our sakes, we can beat them. We can take back our rights and assert the rule of law under the Constitution once again. But we have to be willing to fight for it, to strategize carefully, to minimize harm, to never lose sight of peace as the goal. But where there is oppression, there can be no peace, not real peace. See, they are appealing to our desire to live peaceful lives by saying, if you submit, if you kneel and surrender unconditionally, there won't be bloodshed. There'll be peace. That's not peace. That is submission, and it's a completely different thing. It is captivity. It is enslavement. That is not peace. Druids are traditionally peacemakers. They were diplomats in Irish society, ancient Irish society in many ways. Irish monarchs made no moves without first consulting their druid. Druids always understood that peace at times must be fought for and won, but we don't just fight for ourselves now in here. We fight for the entire world in many ways. Because once America goes, the stability of the world is in jeopardy. Because America decided that they were going to be the big policeman of the whole world, and that's the result. Responsibility we can't handle. Was never really ours to take, arguably. Anyway, so eventually all of us, even old white Christian men, even them, one day can exist all together in freedom and peace on equal terms. Those are our terms. They gave us their terms. Their terms are unacceptable. Complete unconditional surrender? Hell no. Never again. These are our terms. We will make the terms. We, the people of the United States of America. We will decide the terms of peace because they are the ones who broke it. They are the ones who violated their sacred trust to guard our democratic republic and its constitution, the rule of law. Put on your war paint. It's time.